All right, Ingram Smith, Bud Elliott, back again for another episode of the Nolecast. But I'll tell you, my voice sounds better in the last 2 or 3 hours, but I am still just kind of getting back to full speed after Sunday night. I left it all in the stands, my man. It was a hell of an evening. I don't know if I've had that much fun in I really don't. 7 years. I mean, Saturday was one of the most fun days that I can remember. It was just brilliant. Everything from you and I had a hilarious parking story that I don't think it would be our listeners would find all that funny, but it was hilarious. And long story short, a member of the staff was in a parking space that we were supposed to go into, and it was a very funny situation.
We found out who it was. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had a pretty good chuckle. Dude,
uh,
that was awesome,
I
man.
mean, it
Like,
started Friday
what a
night with our
weekend.
sponsors, Charlie Park, Charlie Park, Charlie Park, y'all. They're a sponsor, but that place is really cool and something that you should add to your list. We spent the day with the Louisiana hot sauce guys. Took them straight to Madso because what else would you do? It was just a incredible day. The game was a hell of a game and something that we're real excited to talk about tonight. So this should be a fun episode, all things considered.
That was a good time, Matt. It's like, hey, let's get like 6 burgers and threw down a case of beers on the table, and we just posted up. And it was perfect, man. Got to see everybody who came and see us. Support the sponsors and support the show. Had a couple of folks listen to us since 2011, so really really cool. And they were talking about old episodes. That was fun.
But a ton of Patreons too throughout the weekend, which was a lot of fun. So all
Man.
things just great to walk around. Great to have that opportunity back. Walking around the stadium, 70,000 people, whatever the capacity of the stadium is now. It was just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So hopefully the voice holds up because we've got a whole lot of questions and a whole lot of things to talk about tonight.
I had a little bit of late coffee today. I knew I would kind of need the afterburners to kick in, and post pod will probably crash pretty well tonight. But I'm ready to go. We have so many questions. We normally don't do show review with mailbag style, but I do want to get to what everybody's questions are first. The instant react went a little bit longer than I normally do it. So we're going to do this show question style tonight. I do have some additional notes I'll pop in, and I'm just going to cross some things off my list that I want to talk about. And eventually, when when we get out of the questions, if I have anything that hasn't been crossed off yet, I'll have to talk about it, and we'll do it.
Let's go. So Murat leads us off tonight. He says, to repeat one of Ingram's favorite idioms, let's not get too far out over our skis yet. We've all witnessed a much improved, motivated, and better talented Seminole football team. However, do you remember the UNC game last year? It was followed by a disastrous loss against Louisville. We have much to be hopeful for, but let's take it one game at a time. On that note, are you guys still sticking with your 6-6 or 5-7 prediction? If FSU wins 3 out of the next 4 games against JSU, Wake Forest, Louisville, and Syracuse, where do you predict we will end the year? So, okay, so there's a little bit more to this. Sorry, I think he's 6-6 unless UNM implodes and Manny Diaz is fired. Maybe then we can end with a record around 7-5.
So, yeah, it's a good question, Murat. Appreciate it. I will say that I have upgraded my projection for all the rest of the games. I've increased FSU's power rating. However, they no longer get a 0.2 or 0.23 like I had them in my season projections for the Notre Dame game. They get a 0.0 because that game is now done. So I am upgrading the remaining games. My overall win projection is staying the same. I think I'm still kind of there at 5.7. If you want to make it 5.8, I could see an argument for that. This is one of the things I had on my list, right? Talking about what we saw in some other teams. I didn't really think we'd lead off the show with this, but I think it's kind of interesting to do so. You had a lot of teams FSU plays this weekend that did not look, or who over the weekend maybe did not look quite so good, Ingram. Last night, we saw Louisville really struggle to replace some of their passing options. Their run game at times looked good, but their passing game just didn't look like where it needed to be at all. I think after viewing that game, you feel like this FSU game against them is a little more winnable, right? Wake Forest, it's one game. They struggled to run the ball somewhat against Old Dominion. Obviously, they put up a bunch of points and they won going away. That'll still be a difficult game, in my opinion. North Carolina, a game which I had in the very difficult category. I expected North Carolina's offensive line and defensive line to make a jump. And honestly, it's one game. I don't know that they have so far. They didn't look like they made a jump against Virginia Tech, a Tech team that looks to be pretty decent so far. Miami got absolutely crushed by Alabama. At the same time, I mean, I think Bama could beat this FSU team by 70 if it wanted to. So, like, I have a hard time judging exactly how good or bad Miami is just based on what Alabama did to them, because it's Bama, and that does seem to happen in those opening games. NC State looked like the team I kind of feared they would be, a really good team. They beat the crap out of USF, and they could have run it up a lot more had they wanted to. Florida, I think, will play Richardson by the end of the year. And I believe that staff thinks he's the better quarterback long term. I just don't think he operates the offense quite as well as they need him to. And Boston College played an FCS team. They largely took care of business. I think they had 3 defensive scores, so it's kind of hard to tell. But that'll still be a difficult game. Right now, I'm going to stick with that 5.7. So, bowl, slightly more likely than not making a bowl. I think that's fair. If anybody out there, if you really want to go 4-8 now, I kind of think you're just being a hater for no reason after seeing some of the defensive line stuff that we saw. Like, to me, that's the one thing that really has probably sticking power, is that a defensive line FSU showed. Not that they're going to play with that level of intensity and effort every game. That's hard to sustain. It was Bobby Bowden night, home opener, big time atmosphere. But I don't think those guys are going to get shoved around a whole lot. They have some talent up front. It was tough for me to judge how much talent they really had up front, because not only were they going against FSU's offensive line in practice, which has made a whole lot of guys practice All-Americans on the defensive side of the ball, but also, as we know, a lot of the first-string offensive line was gone for a lot of camp for various reasons, contact tracing and whatnot, some injuries, etc. So it's kind of hard to tell. But after playing against Notre Dame's line, which doesn't have a lot of continuity but does have a lot of talent, I'm pretty sure this defensive line could be one of the better ones in the ACC. And we were kind of bullish on them going in, certainly more bullish than some of the ACC power ratings had them entering the seasons. But yeah, to answer Murad's question, I am going to go ahead and stick with my projection for now. The problem with his question, though, is, hey, if they win 3 out of their next 4 against Jacksonville State, Wake Forest, Louisville, and Syracuse, I mean, that's kind of the expectation, right? Is winning 3 out of the next 4. Overachieving would be sweeping that.
Yeah. If you win, I'm not really into adjusting a whole lot of things after one game, because too many bad extrapolations are made, both about your team and teams that you're going to see on your schedule. But if you go through and you win Wake Forest and Louisville, I'd have no problem with you adjusting your expectations, simply because when we did this, I think both of us had that somewhere around 0.48 to 0.58 for both of those games. Well, just as you can take back the 0.2 or 0.29, whatever I had, and you had out because you didn't get a win against Notre Dame, then I would have no problem with you adding a win to your expectations, because you got 2 games that barely equaled up to 1 win. So if you're able to go through this, Jacksonville State's whatever, Wake Forest game is as important as we thought it was going to be going into the year. And then if Louisville is what they look like in week 1, then yeah, if we're sitting here doing an instant react and you're 3-1, then I think it's more than appropriate to kind of start to change your predictions to the positive. And that is probably when I'll start to do it.
I think that's fair. Here's the other thing you got to think about, right? Is we don't know if what we saw from some of these teams is the actual level of these teams, right? Is what we saw out of Florida State, is that the level that they're actually going to play at this year? Is that at the upper end of their range? Is it at the lower end of their range? That Louisville team we saw play on Monday night, is that like the middle? Is that what we think Louisville's going to look like on average? Or is that like the best Louisville's going to look? Or is it the worst Louisville's going to look? We really don't know where some of these outcomes fall within the range. We only have one data point. So we can say, hey, Louisville looked like crap. They did. They absolutely did. And based on one game, if you want to just use a one-game sample set, you got to be feeling really confident as an FSU fan. However, I also have a data point that says last year, Louisville beat you by 40. So there is that. Just saying, it's a little too early to overreact. There's a lot of positive things to take away from that game, and there were a lot of reminders that there's some struggles as well.
Yeah. Chad asked us a couple questions tonight. Chad was part of the crowd at Charlie Park on Friday night, and like we said, that is a hell of a spot. Chad says, I believe Milton deserves the chance to show what he can do. I'd go with a 75-25 snap mix of Milton Travis going forward, assuming Milton's leg can handle it. Thoughts on that mix? Travis is a good change of pace, but I don't think it really works the same if you flip-flop them, and Travis takes 75% of the snaps. Travis just doesn't throw well enough when there seems to be pocket pressure.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't know what I want to do there as far as QB yet, to be honest. Look, they started Jordan Travis for a reason. Mackenzie Milton was not good in fall camp. There were days where he was not even the second best quarterback in fall camp. I mean, to the extent that he was even at fall camp. I do think that, first of all, I think there are a lot of outcomes here. Number one, Mackenzie Milton could end up being very good. Okay, that's certainly possible. I was very happy I took him in the snap count draft because I figured he was a nice wild card. If he does end up staying healthy and if he really somehow gets it together, maybe he could be really good. However, there is also some potential downside risk here. We don't know how he's going to handle pressure, right? So Chad's question presupposes that he handles pressure well, but Notre Dame only blitzed him, I believe, on 1 of 7 dropbacks. They really weren't blitzing him. They weren't bringing a whole lot of pressure. They also, to me, it looked like Notre Dame had a tremendous plan for Jordan Travis and executed it really well. They kept him bottled up for the most part in the pocket. When he did scramble out of the pocket, he had to really lose ground quite a bit to get out. Part of that, I'd like to see him stay in the pocket better, but Notre Dame had a really good plan. To me, it looked like they continued to play that plan against Mackenzie Milton, but there's no reason to respect Mackenzie Milton's legs to that extent. If teams get the idea that Mackenzie Milton is going to be a starter going forward, for instance, like if he wins the job or earns the primary share, teams will play Mackenzie Milton differently. His arm's not real strong. He has a very quick release, but the actual arm strength is not great, right? I mean, you saw that on a couple of those throws that were going horizontal. I think they'll play him differently. And this is going to sound crazy, but one game, 7 throws should not trump what you've seen in practice out of both these guys. However, you don't want to ignore one game, right? Jordan Travis did not anticipate throws very well. He did not handle pressure in the pocket all that well, and the offense did not operate very well with him in there. Mackenzie Milton did have success. I do think sample set is a major caveat here that we need to keep looking at. But you brought him as a transfer for a reason because the offense's upside, I think, with him is potentially higher if he can play at that really high level, man. But I'll also note, what do you want this offense to be? Like, do you want this offense to be a throwing offense? Should this offense be a throwing offense? Do you really think that they can work as a passing offense? Maybe if you use a lot of the RPO stuff to where the backers are having to respect the throw and you're able to kind of give the ball off a little more. But to my eyes, it's a much better run blocking offensive line than it's a pass blocking offensive line. I know David Hale said they had the worst group of pass catchers in the ACC. He said they had a worst group of, blank position group in the ACC a couple times. I think that's the one that has the greatest chance to actually be true because I like Malik McLean. I really didn't see anybody else scare you out there. Like, did you notice Andrew Parchment? Did he look like an impact guy that you got in the transfer portal? To me, no.
I thought I was positive with what I thought from Keyshawn Helton. He looked close to the pro player a couple years ago. Not sure he gets in on the 2-point that he has to move around there and have a little bit of agility that we hadn't seen from him. It's to circle back to Chad's question. First of all, and we've all lauded Mackenzie for his story and his get back and the determination there. So when we talk about this, certainly, want to acknowledge what this kid's going through.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know that he can take more than 25, 30 snaps a game, bud. I mean, and I'm almost more sure of that having one, talk to people on the staff, and 2, I sat in 3 different places throughout the course of the game, but I spent the vast majority of the time about 2 rows off the sideline behind Florida State's bench. And what that kid, and other people have talked about this, so I'm not again talking out of school, But that kid is constantly getting, like electroshock. He's constantly doing things
The
to his
Theragun with
leg
the foot.
just to keep it, alive and kicking, so that it can be there. And if he's called upon, I think we have to realize the severity, and everybody does, but realize the severity of the injury, and that if you play that kid more than 20, 30 snaps, 35 snaps, I don't know that you're going to have him available for the next game. I mean, you are really going to have to pitch count this with him, and it's a work in progress. I don't think there's a game that Mackenzie Milton takes 61 snaps in. And if it is, maybe it's chips in the middle of the table. And if he misses the next 2 games, so be it. But this is a real game that you think you got to get. It's a great story. I saw a couple of his family members around town before the game, but I was out there where we park. There were probably 32 family members waiting for him to come out. I mean, that was incredible to
Oh,
see.
it was
And
crazy.
love it, love it. But you're going to have to work with him, and there's going to be some limitations that I think are going to be present throughout the course of the season.
I think you'll need both. I really do. I think Chad's point, though, is a good one, that McKenzie as a changeup does not work quite as well as Jordan as a changeup, because you want to be more of a throwing team, I think, if you can be. I don't know that this team makes a whole lot of sense to be a throwing team just based on the personnel. You do have some receivers, particularly young receivers, who are blocking. I think Josh Burrell will get more involved in that. Malik McClain blocking his butt off. Very impressive. What kind of odds would you give me that McClain is a 3-and-out guy?
Sure looks like it.
Would you give me odds on it?
Yeah. Or no. Oh,
You would not.
I
You would.
don't know.
Yeah.
I would want to take it. Let me put it
Better
that
than
way.
even money.
You can interpret that in your own
Yeah.
Las Vegas jingo there, bud. But our lingo. I don't. That's a different looking dude, and I love the buy-in. I mean, receivers want to catch, they want to score touchdowns, but the run blocking buy-in, the effort he makes, even on Corbin's touchdown. I mean, he just gets a hand to Hamilton there, pushes him off his trajectory of pursuit, and it's a hell of an effort. Number 11's a damn good player, and look forward to what you can do with him.
No doubt. Chad's other questions here. So he asked a similar one that Murat did, as far as based on how we played, what's your win-loss for the year? So keeping that the same, but I've adjusted all our games, up slightly. Just the Notre Dame game is now off the table. How do you think this game impacted recruiting? Chad, with 3 pretty good questions here. So thoughts on Coleman, Pritchett, Armella, Skinner, Kelly, etc. Well, talked to a couple of different people about this, and I do have some thoughts. Kevin Coleman, do we have him as a 5-star on 24/7 Sports? I should probably know this going in.
I think you still do. Yeah.
Okay. So Kevin Coleman, really speedy receiver out of the St. Louis era, and man, legit player. I've seen him. He can go both ways. Saw him do some 7-on-7 stuff. Seems to play pretty hard. Very speedy guy. I feel good.
Composite 5-star. You guys have him as a 4-star. Excuse me.
But like a top 100 type kid for sure.
Yeah.
Top 50, I think.
Nationally, you've got him at 19.
Okay. Well,
so he's as close as you can get to being a 5-star.
And we end up at 32 5-stars.
Okay.
So,
okay.
If he holds on to 19, then yeah. I think the staff feels good. I feel like they showed him a couple things. Number one, they showed him the ability to get the ball in the hands of the receivers in some creative ways. Get that 2-point conversion, which I thought was nice. They let Ja'Kai Douglas go deep, showcase the deep speed there. A lot of different screen varieties that Coleman could catch and do very well with. They made a great impression on him, from everything I understand. I think they're in a good spot there. Obviously, Oregon's in this. There's a couple other teams that are kind of in this. Depends on when he actually wants to go public with his decision. But I feel like FSU is in a very good spot here. Of the guys who are on campus, I think that is the guy who maybe they made the best impression with. Although we talked about this in the post game. There's a whole lot of guys he did a very nice job with. A very nice job. Jalen Brown, the 2023 receiver, they feel like they're doing a really good job with him. He's fast as hell. South Florida kid, They need to reload that receiver room. We know 22 is not a good year for receivers in the state for the most part. 23 is a very nice year for receivers in the state, and they seem to be making a very nice impression on one of the best there. Elijah Pritchett, what I was told is this: we've done everything we can. We have told you guys, we have not BS'd about this. We said FSU is going to be in a position to be in it for a lot of really good recruits this year that maybe otherwise, with its likely record, it would not be able to be in for. Because you knew you were going to be able to take a whole class. There are some guys you're going to be able to push for and be in on early, and kids do value being in early on. It makes that early impression. You have that long-standing relationship, whereas other schools are still kind of figuring out their board, how many spots will we have, et cetera. FSU is in a unique position to leverage the class size that it has. Now, Pritchett is a kid that a lot of schools would certainly take. I believe this is a battle between Florida State and Alabama. And look, if Bama really wants to push, we see this all the time, right? I mean, you see Steve Wiltfong on the message boards. He puts in a crystal ball somewhere. Fan base gets really excited. All of a sudden, Bama decides 36 hours before, hey, we actually do really want this kid. Kid goes to Bama. Fans say, Steve, what happened? It's like, look, man, Bama could turn up the heat on a guy a little bit extra. And that's not like a negative reference. It's just like, hey, like they finally decided, right, we really do want him. We're going to push.
Florida State 25 years ago. I mean,
they're on a different level right now.
Florida State would get involved with a kid in December and sign him in February. And that's it's just a different game. So,
yeah.
And he's not an Alabama kid. He's 4 miles from the Alabama. In fact, he's probably less than 4 miles from the Alabama border. And a lot of people in that part of the state are Alabama or Auburn fans as much as they are anything. So
Carver Columbus is pretty much Bama. Yeah. So look, they believe they've done everything they can possibly do. They think they're in a very good spot. You got to stay on the guy and you got to play the waiting game. It's definitely not a lock, but I mean, Alex Atkins has a really good relationship with him. I know some other staffers do as well.
He brought the whole, he brought a lot of people with him, which is always a good sign. And that was a great atmosphere and a great opportunity to make an impression on the broader family.
Exactly. I mean, got to take some photos just in case, you do decide that you want to pull the trigger for you're at it. Let me see. Who else does Chad want to know about here? Some guys, by the way, that he didn't ask about, if I can bring up real fast. Did you see LSU over the weekend?
I did, yes.
Kind of looked a whole lot like LSU last year. If they keep looking like that, LSU fans probably not going to be real patient, I wouldn't think. Because it kind of looks like a Gene Chizik type situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If LSU were to have a problem, man, they got some dudes. Demario Tolan, remember that name? FSU linebacker recruiting not going very well right now. They're almost certainly going to have to hit the portal for one after this year. Demario Tolan, maybe have him back if you had a coaching change there at LSU. If that happens, not saying it will happen, but potentially somebody to look at there. Terrence Welsh, Kendrick Law, who you did not have on campus. I think they did a really nice job with him. Who knows? Jake Johnson, stud tight end. Mm-hmm. His brother's a starting quarterback at LSU, but coaching change. His dad did play for the school. Who knows? What I'm saying is if LSU has a coaching change, that is not going to be a bad thing at all for the Noles. Who else did
Julian Armella?
Yeah. Kind of limited feedback there. I think like they're staying in the fight. Again, we don't know how many schools Armella is actually a take at. Some people really question as to whether he's a take at some of the top schools on his list. And I'd be one of those as well. So, we'll see. I know that some of the ratings on him at some of the rating services are just really all over the board. Yeah. I agree with our 24/7 Sports ranking on him. I think he's a good player.
Good player.
Not a top 10 national player.
Expressed a certain degree of skepticism for a while.
Skinner. So Jaleel Skinner is an interesting prospect, right? FSU's recruiting him as a receiver. I see him as a tight end, personally. Really hasn't done much at IMG so far. I don't know on that one. It'll be interesting to see where he goes. I'll be curious. Just you would think throwing with AJ Duffy at IMG, he would catch more balls. And I didn't love him over the summer. Obviously, he's playing on the Cam Newton team. We talked about this on the episode. Their quarterback was not very good. Didn't seem to want to throw the ball to Skinner a whole lot. But also, like, Skinner's big and fast for his size, but hip wise, I don't know. Sometimes I think I see it, and sometimes I don't see it. We'll have to kind of see. I don't know. There's some recruits in this class who are rated lower who I like better. I think, and I think FSU, by the way, likes Jarrell Powers a whole lot. Yeah. Last one he has Nigel Kelly. I know you got some positive word on this one.
It's a positive word, but let's be fair. With that atmosphere, that situation, you're gonna get positive word on a lot of people. That would certainly be the expectation. So now that we've put a little bit of objectivity into the conversation, if they sign Nigel Kelly, I think it'll be the most impressive signing that they've had in 5 years. But I think it'll be an incredible testament to evaluation, relationship. He was never a 3-star. We were being smartasses about that 7 months ago or so. I mean, the kid was never what his original recruiting was going to be. He was always going to have, Kirby, Nick, everybody else in the college world get involved with the recruitment. So it would be a hell of a testament to evaluation, to consistency of relationship, and to seeing something through the whole way, getting a kid, South Florida kid, by the way, you're going to have to beat Miami too, getting him back on board. And I'm not lighting off fireworks celebrating this anytime soon, but I think you're in a really great place. And it's been again, if you sign this kid, it'd be as impressive as anything you've done on the recruiting scene in quite a while.
I would agree with that. I do believe he did very well as far as hanging out with other recruits, and they came away thinking, I think it's pretty positive stuff on Nigel Kelly. I think they are in a about as good a spot as they can be there. Look, you had a really, really good recruiting weekend, man. It's what you needed to get done. Jerron Willis, haven't heard anything there. The school he's committed to lost over the weekend to Northern Illinois, which is not great.
And he was there, and it was the lowest attended opening game in 25 years. It's a fan base that's never embraced Jeff Collins, or much of it has never embraced Jeff Collins. If you want this kid, and there, I don't know this for sure. It doesn't sound like he met with Norvell. They may be, it may be kind of, I don't know, slow playing or just.
I would slow play him.
Not going to get fooled
after what he did last time.
Yeah,
I would definitely slow play him. If I was Norvell, but yeah.
If you decide you want this kid and you can't get him and you can't beat Georgia Tech for this kid, then you got to look yourself in the mirror and wonder what the hell's going on. Now, they're not going to fire Collins, at Georgia Tech. He's got for Georgia Tech and Georgia Tech's financial situation, he's got a pretty nasty contract to have to deal with. But selectively negative recruiting against that school right now with that schedule that they're going to face. Yes. Yeah, you should be able to win this battle if you decide it's one that you think is worth winning.
I mean, Kennesaw could beat them this weekend.
They very well could.
Like, I'm waiting for that line to come out tomorrow morning, and I talked to some Georgia Tech people when I was in the ACC media days, and they were like, Kennesaw could beat them.
Yeah.
They did not say Northern Illinois could beat them, and they did. So, let me see. Grayson Howard was there. I feel like they're in a really good spot for him. I think that's pretty much it as far as recruiting right now. Marvin Jones, obviously, there, tweeting that he loved it. Duffy, the same thing. Things seem to go pretty well this weekend, all things considered. I will say, by the way, and I'm not trying to paint the fan base with a broad brush.
I was about to say the same thing. A quick PSA on recruiting setting.
Look, if you guys don't know, they moved the recruiting section in front of the student section now. It's really cool because, like, the recruits get to see all the passion, and typically they're by a bunch of students, which is pretty cool, and the energy is high. It's not next to a bunch of people who are sitting down. That's all well and good. They also serve beer in the stadium now, right? Which, again, good thing. You need the revenue. People are going to sneak in alcohol anyway. However, I will tell you this. You do not have the arm to throw a beer can as far as you think you do. in protest of a bad call, throw the birds up,
particularly empty beer cans.
Yeah, right. Which, throw the birds up, launch a couple F-bombs, whatever, if it's a real bad call. Do not throw empty beer cans, in an attempt to throw it on the field in protest of a call to where it almost hits a recruit's parent. It's just not a good experience for them, right? And luckily nobody got hurt or whacked, at least from what I was told. But, just like, come on, fraternity guys. We have block seating back. I think that's pretty cool. I liked having block seating when I was there, but you got to be smarter than that. Don't throw beer cans. That's dumb.
All right, we're getting into these questions here.
Yeah, what are we 2 down? We have 14.
Yeah. All right. So Cole asks, finally, season opener has us excited about the next week and not the next season. Good point, Cole. A couple questions. First, the defense. I was very impressed with this unit. Front seven did a great job up front, and other than the blown coverage on the first touchdown, the secondary seemed to be in the right place most of the night, which was very refreshing. I know a lot is made about the total points and yards given up. However, they were given multiple short fields, and Notre Dame had about 200 yards on 4 or 5 plays in the blown coverages. The screen, great call, and the 2 long touchdowns that Jay lost on jump balls. All in all, if the D-line stays healthy, I see a major improvement on this side of the ball. Okay, so not much question is observations. Agree with most of them, Cole. Personally, I like sticking with Travis right now and use Milton as a change of pace. I don't think our line is ready to not have a mobile QB. Do you think, here comes the questions, do you think that Travis starts next year, or do you see Chuba or Duffy starting? Final question is, with all the ACC teams struggling this weekend, do you still see 5 unwinnable games?
So I think I'll take these in reverse order. First, I hope I didn't use the word unwinnable. I just used the word like unlikely, right? Like not coin flips, not weighted coin flips. But look, I mean, unless you think you can do to Clemson what Georgia's defense did to Clemson, that's not a winnable game for you on the road, because they will shut down this offense pretty easily. North Carolina, kind of up in the air. Can you play man coverage like Virginia Tech did? Can you score on them? Possibly. Miami at home, I mean, you have to feel a little bit better about that. Florida, I think they're going to end up with Richardson, as I said, and I don't think you're going to win that one in the swamp. Do I think Jordan Travis will start next year? I don't know, man. It's weird because I think he might be your best option, but he might not be. But you also want to start to show, I think, some proof of concept as to what you actually want this offense to be. You know what I'm saying? So if he does, I think you'll probably still play other guys too. I hope that's not a cop-out answer there.
No, that's more or less my answer as well. I mean, Duffy will get an opportunity, but Duffy's got some. You can watch his high school tape and other things. He's got some things to work on, and he's by no means a finished product. So we have an unknown Patreon, but yeah. So that was both of Cole's questions. Literally, there's no name or even it's interesting. So
just blank.
Yeah, just blank. I love it. It's been several years since the fan base has felt good going into week 2. Similar point. What are the things that the fan base can look for against an average at best FCS team that we can glean as to if there's been continued progress from game 1? That's a good question.
That is. So I would say communication in the secondary during the opening script, right? That's something I thought FSU struggled with some. Some of their rotations were a little bit late. There were clearly some plays where guys did not know their assignments, but I think on the whole, you have to say that they had far fewer of those plays in a big game setting than they did in basically any game last year. I mean, you just had fewer guys running free due to assignment bust. You did have some guys running free because they're just better players, notably Michael Mayer, who's better than Gant or whomever they want to put covering him. That was not a surprise. We ID'd that matchup as one they probably were not going to be able to win there. Other stuff to look for this weekend. How much do they try to work the passing game? Right? Here's a question for you. Let me throw this out there. You want to give Milton some reps, clearly.
Yeah, you're going to see Chuba. I mean, I can almost certainly tell you that this weekend.
Chuba gets to play some too, for sure. But like, do you want Milton getting hit in this game? How do you balance that? Like the need to see more of Milton in games, I think. Especially if you buy into the idea he's a gamer theory, which I'm not really sure I do, but I can't totally dismiss it. With also the need to balance, hey, let's not get this kid hurt.
I would have a pre-arranged setup for this game, and I don't like doing that. But I would let the quarterbacks know so that you don't think, and so that Jordan doesn't think he gets yanked. So I might give Jordan the first 2 series, and I might give McKenzie the first 2 series.
I like that a lot.
I don't need to see McKenzie Milton playing a ton against Jack State. I mean, I really think there's only so many snaps that kid could get, in my opinion, and you don't need to go burning him here. So give him a chance, give him a couple possessions. Let them continue to try to get a little bit of rapport, game rapport, little wide receivers, and we go to Central North Carolina next weekend, and hopefully he's a little bit more available for that. Second question is, if Florida State plays a similar game as they did against Notre Dame, what do you expect the record to be going headed into the game at Chapel Hill?
If they play a similar game against the FCS opponent. Or what are we talking about here? If they keep playing at that level?
Yeah, if they play at the level that they played against Notre Dame for the first 5 games or the next 5 games.
Well, let me take a look at this. I know the next 4 games. Who's the 5th game?
Well, sorry, UNC is the 5th game.
It is the 5th game. Okay, that's right. I was trying to think in my head, what game am I missing?
It's just
if they play at that level legitimately, I actually think that 4-0 might be more likely than 3-1. Probably not. Like, I understand how the that would work. 3-1 is probably the most likely there. Plus the Notre Dame loss, so 3-2. But if they continue to play at that level, I feel good that you have a winning record going into the North Carolina game. Wouldn't you think so?
I think it's very doable. I mean, just go get the win at Wake Forest, and let's go from there. I mean, that's really is as important as we thought it was 2 or 3 months ago. And with all the optimism and the excitement, and can't tell you how many people have reached out to me, Florida State fans, non-Florida State fans. That's all going to be gone if you look at a record that's 1-2, in my opinion. I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer or anything else, but a lot. You won't lose the recruiting. You won't lose the experience that those kids had, and the seeing Doak like that. But you're from the fan base. I think a lot of this high will be gone if you don't come back to Tallahassee and are playing for your 3rd win against Louisville. So,
by the way, you will be. I am not worried at all about this game this weekend. Jacksonville State has a pretty good quarterback who some people think will get drafted. I don't know if I'm in that camp, but for FCS standards, he's pretty good. The talent around him this year, it ain't there. He was 17 of 34 against UAB, so 50%. All right, whatever. For 86 yards.
Okay.
So they threw the ball 34 times, 86 yards. They lost 31-0. Their rushing game, horrendous. I mean, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the post Notre Dame pod talking Jacksonville State. We still have a preview pod to do. That's going to be a fun thing. How the hell am I going to preview Jacksonville State after they just did that? Anyway, my point is, I think you'll have the freedom to rotate guys and to play a whole lot of players this weekend. Yeah. I want to see more Shyheim Brown, right?
Yeah, true.
I mean, could Shyheim Brown be a starter by the end of this year? I don't know. Maybe. It's not crazy. It's not like your safety's dominated. I kind of liked what I saw from Dent at times, but we'll see.
Let's see. Mr. Sam has the next question here. He says, how did the Champions Club look for this game? Couldn't really tell from the broadcast, but were more of the actual seats filled for this game compared to previous seasons? Or does it continue to be an eyesore? Sam is somebody that sat in the Champions League, the Champions Club, 10 times more fans and seats than I've ever seen before. Now, one is because it's a damn night game. I mean, during the day, I know they got the misters and the fans, but if you're there for a 1:00 kick or noon, I sat there for the Boise State game. First of all, that was just a hot as hell game in general. Mm-hmm. It was one of the hottest experiences of my life. A night game in the Champions Club is a much more enjoyable experience. I routinely look throughout the season or look throughout the stadium during the night, and it looked incredible. There weren't open seats. The Champions Club was occupied, was engaged. Um, I don't know that you get that more than once or twice a year, but it was evident Sunday night. Absolutely.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, let's go ahead and take a question here from Ryan. Ryan says, FSU had a 57% success rate on passing downs in the second half. What made that possible, and is it sustainable? That's an interesting thing there. I will pull up some of their stats here if Ingram wants to kind of vamp for me here.
57% on passing downs in the second half. Well,
is that true?
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think that's true. I think a lot of that is.
So I would say it's definitely not sustainable to have a 57% success rate on passing downs, right? Clearly, Norvell found something. I didn't realize it was that high, actually. Let's see if I can filter here to actually figure out like what each play was. I'm interested to see like what I really want to find here is what did they do in terms of like were they getting those by running the ball on those passing downs, or were they getting those by throwing the ball on those passing downs? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, the more I think about it, I'm kind of skeptical about this number as well. Not that, I think Ryan's lying to us, but I am having a hard time pairing a 57% success rate with what I saw for much of that half, unless it's just, Milton really didn't get that many snaps to fluctuate a number that much.
Well, I'm able to filter this, right? So I went ahead and used filtering third, fourth quarter, and overtime. And then I looked at pass very likely situations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also pass likely. They actually had a 75% success rate in pass likely third down situations in those quarters, and a 58% in second down pass likely situations. So that's 13 plays. Looking at the plays here, why is it showing that? It's definitely not what we're looking for here. Huh. I'm actually having a little bit of trouble filtering the.
You take a look at that. Let me do Michael's question real quickly. Michael says a first game is so hard to judge. Was there actually run blocking improvement, or was Notre Dame playing soft? Was the defensive line actually good, or was Notre Dame playing poorly? No, the defensive line's pretty good. The defensive line made a little bit of hay with one of Notre Dame's injuries, but Notre Dame recruits as well. We can't sit here and tell you the week before that Notre Dame recruits as well as anybody in the country at offensive line, and then want to qualify that, oh, well, they got one kid dinged up and Florida State, made some hay there. The Keir Thomas is a good player. You hit a home run with the kid from Georgia, all right? Not only he's a hell of a player, he's for a transfer, for a JUCO kid, he's a hell of a locker room guy as well. I mean, that's you're not going to get that lucky in the portal all the time, but you did on that one, at least so far. Were they playing soft? They certainly backed off some. I mean, 38-20, they changed their defensive game plan, let you have the run if you chose to take it, and Florida State smartly did. So they did change their opinion there. I agree with you, Michael. It's really hard to gauge a whole lot from one game, and far too frequently, I think fan bases do so, and particularly with either quarterbacks or everybody gets the Zapruder film out and judges individual plays with a level of magnification that you don't really any other game. But no, I don't think you were sold fool's gold there if you believe that Florida State's got a pretty damn good, pretty good defensive line. That's not a one-off thing in my opinion.
So I found some of the plays, right? 3rd and 7, touchdown Florida State. Jordan Travis to Ja'Kai Douglas for 60 yards, the second biggest offensive play of the game. Beautiful throw by Jordan, by the way, just an absolute dime. 3rd and 5, Sean Corbin rushes for 3, so that's a fail. 3rd and 8, which is 3rd and goal from Notre Dame 8. Jordan Travis touchdown pass to Andrew Parchment. 3rd and 11, Mackenzie Milton completes to Keyshawn Helton for 15 yards. Obviously, remember that one. And then 3rd and 6, Mackenzie Milton incomplete on the bad snap. So those were the situations there for the 3rd and 4th down. And then if I take a look at the The other ones here, second down, passing down situations. Jordan Travis rushes for 1. That's not gonna get it done. Deshaun Corbin rushes for 5 on 2nd and 10. Again, that's not really gonna get it done. Trayshawn Ward rushes for 19 on 2nd and 7. Trayshawn Ward rushes for 6 on 2nd and 8. So both those are great success. Jordan Travis scrambles for 25 on 2nd and 9. Jashaun Corbin rushes for 9 on 2nd and 13, which is, that's a success as well. I think the key here, and I'm glad I went ahead and dug this up. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I was just curious because I don't recall them dropping back and throwing the football super well in those situations. And in fact, it looks like maybe over half of those successful plays on passing downs in the second half that were graded successful were actually rushes.
Yeah, which is tied to Michael's question as well.
Yeah.
I mean, Notre Dame made some adjustments with how they were going to defend you, and I think that's why I struggled with that as well. I thought we were talking strictly passing plays there. So yeah, those two questions are kind of interwoven. And hey, how about Trayshawn Ward, man? That's a fun kid to watch run, and a level of patience that I know a lot of the guys say, "Oh, he kind of looks like D Free because of the number." I'm hesitant to make that comparison, but the patience, the burst when he decides to go, that's a good quality back there. You got some nice options in the backfield, certainly. And I thought Toa Philly ran with a little bit more physicality, and you didn't see a ton of him, but what you saw, I was pretty enthused by.
Totally agree there. So we already took Snowman's comment, obviously. Did you shout out my boy Jarvis Brownlee?
No, I don't believe I did. Did we take Snowman's question? I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry. See, I got lost on the sheet here because I was so lost in my stat sheet trying to figure out exactly. I didn't want to blow off Ryan's question. So Snowman says, what were your thoughts on the performance of the secondary? Anyone we should be excited about the improvement of? Dent flashed some. To me, it seemed better positioned. Jay had a good game from what I could tell. Obviously, had a couple bad plays. Pretty much agree with Snowman there. I don't know that Gant is a major asset right now. Maybe he can get better as the season goes on. I will tell you a guy I was a little bit kind of sad for post injury is Miko Dotson. He was out there some and didn't really look a whole like real quick and stuff. And for a guy who's small, you gotta be quick. Certainly, I want to see more of Shaim Brown. I thought Sidney Williams actually flashed a couple times. Mm-hmm. He was all over the place. Like I can see what they like in him. And then of course, I mean, look, my guy Jarvis Brownlee is kind of like setting the tone for the whole defense. He's cracking skulls. He's in tight coverage. He plays like with a ton of passion. And yeah, Jarvis Brownlee for president.
For president.
This is going to be a good secondary, I think. I really do.
It is.
You can play some man coverage. You can be physical. I think they will ultimately be a better red zone secondary than they showed in that game. I think they can probably bully some people down there in the red zone. And if they stop allowing huge explosive plays, which at times they did a nice job of in this game, they should be pretty good.
Yeah, I remain very high on Travis Jay. I mean, I know he took a little bit of his medicine on Sunday night and probably a little humbled. Kid certainly made some decent throws against him. I think he probably intercepts one of the other touchdowns if he's even got 2 or 3 more games under his belt. Just needs a little bit more experience. He makes the interception at the end of the game. That's a trash bag, or not a trash bag play. It's just a trash bag stat that looks nice on the back of the baseball card, but otherwise is not necessarily reflective of much. But Travis Jay is going to be a hell of a player, and if you listen to this podcast, you weren't caught off guard by the fact that Notre Dame had some pretty good receivers that that you may not have otherwise.
But they lost all their production from last year, right. Man. I was told. Yeah.
Yes. I know.
Keep it. Go back and remember who was telling you that, and which podcast over the summer kept telling you they got some studs who were just hurt all last year. They got some really good guys who will play in the NFL. We do take our time. We do our research. We care about this product.
Mr. Bobby has the next question here. He says more of a comment. So let's see here. With so much talk of the quarterbacks and so much talk of the offense and the quarterbacks, but how about Fuller and the defense? Through 4 quarters, they allowed just as many points as the more talented Notre Dame defense and played an offense that projects with multiple NFL draft picks. Notre Dame is a top defensive coach in the industry. The adjustments made throughout the game by Florida State were great, and they started to take some strides as a unit. rewatching last night, I was even more proud of some of the individual efforts. Plays like Lundy hanging with Myers on a fourth quarter pass to make it a tough catch that Myers ultimately drops. Looking forward to your analysis and hoping this defensive spark grows more into a flame. So, Bobby, I appreciate your thoughts. I know there's not a ton of questions there. I liked Lundy for the most part. I think you're okay with Lundy and Deloach. We don't need to bag on the linebackers a whole lot, but
Deloach is your best linebacker right now.
The concerns we had are the concerns we had, and it falls off real quickly after those two. And
you'll need to visit the portal this fall. I'm very confident if your defense wants to take another step forward or avoid taking a step back, considering that you do lose some important guys on the defensive line. Look, man, Adam Fuller deserves credit. Last year was a terrible year for the defense. However, I mean, there are some other defenses out there who look like they got a whole lot better when they had a staff that wasn't brand new with the COVID offseason. I would point to Michigan State as an example, right? They look much better now that they actually have a coaching staff that has been able to teach them up. Now, of course, some teams didn't struggle like that last fall. I think FSU had some cultural problems on its defense as well at times that were challenging. Sometimes you just got to you got to figure out how to put all the pieces together and do the right thing there. I'm not trying to ramble here, but look, I think Fuller and his staff deserve credit. They said basically we have to take away the run. Last year, Notre Dame just ran all over us. We need to play the more high variance game, which is pass defense. Maybe we'll get the bounces and the throws in our favor. Maybe they'll catch some wind and sail, or maybe our guys will shut them down. But we're going to play, a lot of solos on the outside. We're going to see if you can beat us there. We're going to try to give our inside guys as much help as possible on Mayer. And we are going to rely on our front largely to stop the run. And the backers were pretty clean most of the night. You got to give a lot of credit to Odell Higgins for getting Fabian Lovett into a legitimate force. I thought Robert Cooper did some nice things as well. Keir Thomas is not a great pass rusher, but he's pretty good against the run. And it's like, yeah, that's like in NFL terms, like that's a nice veteran piece you sign. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Probably not like a super mega contract, but like that's a guy that can help our defense out this year.
Great.
And as an NFL guy, you're happy about it.
A lot of flexibility. A lot of like what you can do with him. Really,
exactly. Like you'll probably need to play some more 3-man front in some of these games coming up. I suspect probably some more of that like 3-2 stuff. I'm interested to see where this defense goes, but I saw a lot of positive there. I did. Notre Dame, most of their big plays, I would say, were earned, which is what you want. You didn't want to just give them away. Had a couple giveaways, but most of them were earned. Defensive line looked good. And look, compare the run fits last year to this year. Night and day. We can talk about Chris Morrow's recruiting and how I'm not impressed with it at this point. But his backers were not running around like chickens with their head cut off. They knew where to be. They quickly ID'd the play. It did help that the defensive line was steady win against the Notre Dame offensive line, which is awesome. But those guys triggered. They got downhill quickly, and they did a pretty good job there against the run. I'm trying to be positive, so we're not really going to talk about linebackers pass coverage right now, but read between the lines.
Lee says it was a great game. In fact, it was his first night game at Doak, and it was his wife's first time ever at Doak. So it's a nice way to introduce her. Her team resides in Tuscaloosa and did us all a favor on Saturday. Yes, they did, Lee. It was all about the W, as Alabama put out in the graphic, which is cool.
Did they really?
Yes, all about the U. Double. The O-line still had its past struggles, but how much of that was due to being unable to actually block, forced Jordan Travis running himself into pressure? And what's up with the centers and several bad snaps? Yeah, that's really frustrating. I mean, it's not new. Doesn't mean it's not frustrating. Doesn't mean that it's kind of absurd that you ask Mackenzie Milton to make a crazy play where you're, trying to win a game and the ball's bouncing around at his ankles. And if that was only but the one bad snap, we would be, okay. But unfortunately, it's just the fact of the matter. 53 struggling with some stuff right now. It would appear from a health perspective, Bavion Johnson's never been great at snapping the ball. I mean, that's as simple as I can put it. And it's strange that a guy would be labeled the number one center in the country and have troubles with that, but it's just the fact of the matter. I want to say this. Certainly, Travis had his challenges and has to work on throwing with anticipation and has to have a better feel for the pocket. But we also need to be fair here and acknowledge that Notre Dame knew who the quarterback was going to be for about the past 2 weeks. I mean, they've certainly been. It's not a secret as to what Florida State was probably going to have behind center, and Notre Dame's had eight months to prepare for this. I mean, it's a
They faced him last
situation.
year.
Yeah, I mean, and they came up with a good game plan. They did. So I'm not gonna close the book on Jordan Travis because the way that it looked, he still has some things to work on, and Notre Dame had a really good game plan for him. And for those that you want to call for McKenzie Milton, I certainly get it, but even if you want to be hypercritical of McKenzie Milton in some of those, he misses a guy or two. Whatever the fan base, whatever quarterback's in front of the fan base, a lot of them are going to be eager to see the other guy, and that's just football 101. So
Ultimately, I want to see McKenzie Milton play really well because I think the ceiling of this team is higher with him in. I am not a full believer yet that he can do that. We will see. I think he flashed it. That's great. Can we see it more? If you're a coach, you're like, that's pretty cool, but that's weird, man, because we weren't seeing this in practice. Offensive line, if they get Maurice back, then I think the snapping problems should improve. If they don't, I don't expect any improvement. We've seen this, like you said, for plenty of years. It'll continue to be a problem. You hope you don't lose a game because of it, because I don't think they're gonna fix it. It's gonna be a problem. But the guards in this game were kind of crappy, to be honest. I thought Gibbons wasn't very good, and DLT. All right, been positive for most of the show. It's time for some kind of real talk here. He doesn't look right to me physically. I know he came out of the game. You and I were both very skeptical when we were told, hey, we're going to work him at guard, right? And my initial thought was, so he's a diminished player because of the injury, and they're going to have to put him at guard because he can't play on an island at tackle physically after being your best tackle last year. And I don't know that's accurate, but after one game, I am kind of being like, I think that might have been it.
Yeah,
that's not good. Because then you got to play what, Gibbons and Pope with Babion snapping if Smith's out. Need to get those guys back and healthy somehow and get them back quickly, because this offensive line should be better this year if it can stay healthy. But if it doesn't stay healthy, there's no guarantee that it's actually improved from last year.
I want to say something real quickly, and we don't get into this, and I'm certainly not gonna, we're not a bunch of rah guys or whatever else. But I mentioned where I sat. Dante Lucas was one of the more plugged in individuals and supportive guys of his teammates on the sideline. I was blown away by what I saw from Dante Lucas. He was encouraging. He was invested. He was
getting with the program.
Really good teammate. Again, we're not a bunch of rah guys and worry about that stuff. But for a guy that we've always wanted the best for, and at the same time acknowledged that there was going to be some highs and lows on kind of the EKG of how he goes about through his career in Tallahassee. Hopefully that is a sign of positive things to come, because that was a guy that from the outside looked to be a pretty good teammate on Sunday night.
No doubt, man. That is very good to see. All right, so let's go ahead and take. We already took Lee's one question there. So Logan's question. Man, we're almost to the end of the show. This is pretty impressive. I'd love you all to share some of your biggest surprises and disappointments after Notre Dame based on your expectations going into the game /season. So surprise. I was surprised Jordan Travis didn't throw the ball better. Telling y'all stuff out of practice about him actually being a better thrower, it wasn't BS. Like he literally showed that. And he didn't anticipate very well in the game, didn't seem to handle pressure all that well, and they had a great game plan for him and were largely able to shut him down. Although I will note, on some of those early things when the offensive line was just terrible, I'd like to go back and measure like how many yards Jordan Travis saved with ridiculous hero scrambles and throwing the ball away as opposed to taking like enormous sacks. Because there were several of those that it was like, oh my gosh, like if you don't have somebody who's super quick, that's like a 9-yard loss. That surprised me a little bit. I would say to the positive side, Fabian Lovett just smoking the interior offensive line for Notre Dame, demanding double teams. It's like, ooh, okay. And we had just watched Jordan Davis the previous night together at Charlie Park, right? And have him destroy Clemson. And he's not Jordan Davis, but that's a guy, man. He keeps this up and keeps improving. He could really play on Sundays. That was a good sign. Like having a dominant interior defensive tackle, if just for one game. And he wasn't dominant every play, but like that guy made a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned Charlie Park on Friday night. Just want to acknowledge we were ever so fortunate to be able to join Chad and Shannon up there. You can go to FSU Home Loans to learn more about the great services that they've provided so many of our listeners. Another 2 loans closed last week, Bud. You know as well as anybody the type of service and attention that you get from working with Shannon. I think you made a great point a couple weeks ago and have made it on a couple subsequent shows. Shannon has kind of graduated out of this role, but you get the opportunity to work with a really senior guy who has an incredible level of attention to detail. Shannon gets back to people in a manner that not many do out there. He's pretty remarkable. Great guy. You can reach him at 954-369-6171 or go to FSUHomeLoans.com. Also want to thank our friends at Congruity. Matt Lewis and his team were ever so excited to work with them for a second year here. CongruityHR.com is the website that you can go and learn more about their services. If you're looking for help with payroll, HR, any way that you're looking to make your business that much more successful, whether you're a business owner or know with somebody who's looking to try to find help in those areas. Very much excited to work with him again. You can go to congruityhr.com and Matt will be up there for our Louisville listener appreciation event. So excited to see him. He was about the only sponsor that we weren't able to hang out with this weekend, and look forward to seeing you, Matt, and so many of our listeners over there at Matso for the Louisville game.
That will be a really good time. By the way, the various advanced metrics have come out on Norvell's 4th down decision, and no surprise, they all say that it's correct. Also, Kurt Weiler of the Tallahassee Democrat, I think Brendan Sano of Knowles 24/7 had this as well. But Norvell was asked about it, and remind me to come back to the Kevin Coleman thing here in a second. I just saw that one. But Kurt Weiler of the Democrat is the guy I saw tweet this, and Norvell was asked, I think on maybe on the Mike Norvell show tonight, and he said, "Where's this at?" Asked for it about the decision to go for it on 4th down inside his own 35 against Notre Dame. FSU coach Mike Norvell said he would make that choice every time. Quote, "There are going to be some times that it's going to be a 50-50 call, and that one Sunday was not. The analytics justified the decision. It was definitely the right call." So here's the thing. I wrote about this on the Knowles 24/7 message board. Be sure to go check those guys out over there. I think they do an awesome job. I'm really fortunate to be part of that community. Do you remember baseball? And remember the old punting is bunting shirt?
Yes.
You know,
So I've got a lot of those floating around here now.
Our OG listeners have those. I think mine might be my wife's like sleep shirt drawer. But in baseball, we all grew up that bunting was the right thing, right? You get a runner on, you bunt them over, you bring them in. Like if you're a kid who watched baseball in the 80s or the 70s or even some of the early 90s, that's what you grew up on. That was the right thing to do. And as people studied, and they're like, ooh, that's actually not the right thing to do. If you look at it, like when you do that, you increase your chance of losing, which is not really what you want to do as a manager. You want to increase chances of winning. And so a couple of managers started to do it less, and they got criticized for not bunting. Why didn't you bunt there? Because people are looking more at outcome-based decision making as opposed to process decision making. And then a couple more managers started to do it, and those managers won, and so they weren't getting criticized as much. And then front offices essentially started getting more power, and they said, you know what? Here's the thing: if you do like ridiculous, dumb bunting, we're going to fire you because we work really hard to put good players on the field, and we can't have you giving away outs in games. This is happening all across the sport of football now, right? And in baseball, you don't see the dumb bunting nearly as much anymore. Now in football, you are starting to see this more. Everybody is subscribed to these analytics companies. They know what increases their chance of winning. And by the way, it's not just a blanket thing. It's like not like, hey, judge your team's momentum. They buy a chart every week. It literally says things like, what quarter are you in? How much time is left? How many yards left to go to the opponent's end zone, right? Previous success, current score, offensive score, defensive score, Vegas over under, Vegas spread, things like that, to where you can be like actual chance of winning entering the game. How many long shot stuff do you need to pull off if you want to come back in this game if you're in this situation? And then it's color coded. Like green means like definitely go, right? On some of these I've seen. Yellow is kind of like feel it out, right? Red is the opposite, probably punt. This is a pretty clear green. Everything I've seen said this is not a toss up, it's a go. And to understand that, what you really need to get in the mindset, y'all, is punting in that situation is actually the gamble. You are gambling that your defense can get the ball back quickly to you so you can go and score. 4th and 2 needs to be thought of as an opportunity for the offense. It's a very short conversion. Your chance of getting it is actually pretty high. They had a guy open. Jordan Travis just didn't pull the trigger and hit Cam McDonald.
Yeah.
Now, you can say the play call wasn't good. I think that's fair if you want to, right? I think if you have JT in there, I might call a run play. Maybe they're thinking Notre Dame thought the same thing, and that's why they called a pass play, try to catch him off guard. But here's the thing. Norvell's like a baseball manager who's not willing to give away outs. He does not want to give up possessions. In football, outs are like, possessions are like outs in baseball. You cannot be giving up those possessions and just punting them away. Honestly, if Notre Dame had not done so in the first half, they might have blown Florida State out. They had several kind of real sketchy punts there in FSU territory that are pretty clear go situations, and they didn't do it. Now, luckily, they executed on the punts extremely well for them. But ultimately, I think Norvell made the right call there. It's very counterintuitive. There's a whole lot. I mean, there's probably 32 years of my life. I'm 36 to where I would think that's a dumb call. That's not the right thing to do because I just wasn't smart to it. You know what I mean? But now that we know, we've seen what happens. We've broken down all the data. We know that teams that go for it in that situation are much more likely to win based on that game situation or state than not. I think if you're an FSU fan, you need to be really happy that your coach is trying to maximize the win probability, even if it looks crazy. And he clearly doesn't give a damn about the media criticizing him if they end up getting blown out from it, right? We saw that last year. They were like, you should pack it up and go. No, he's like, well, I'm trying to win the game.
Mm-hmm.
I know it doesn't give me a great chance, but like the difference in this is like if I punt here, we have a 0% chance to win. If I go for it, we have a 3% chance to win. Now, 3% is still kind of crappy, but it's better than 0. And Norvell very clearly wants to try to win games. So he's going to do things that help him maximize their chance of winning.
Yeah. I think that's actually the next thing that he said in the quote that you took from Kurt there. He goes, I coach to try to win the games, and that's what I'm doing there. And, analytics, but that's also, it's who he is. I mean, it's being a coach that's comfortable with himself and staying true to himself. I mean, those are the decisions that he made, and those are the decisions that I expect him to continue to make as long as he's Florida State's head coach. So,
by the way, you want to get a quote here from Kevin Coleman?
Please.
Quote, play calls were crazy, really good, really amazing. It amazed me to see how good their offense did. After the game, I just talked to the coaches and told them good play calling, and they talked to me about how I could have a huge impact on that game.
Good play calling, coach. I do. Kevin Coleman kind of cracks me up. I could, maybe go without like the I need 10,000 followers stuff on Twitter or Insta.
He's building his brand, man.
Yeah, he's a wide receiver, definitely. But hopefully, a guy you can get in the mix, because that's a level of talent that you might only have one other piece that's similar to it on the roster right now.
Good interview there by Zach Blowstein at Noles 24/7. So definitely go give him a follow as well. All right, we have one more question tonight to hit, I think.
I believe so. Yeah.
Oh, actually, we have two. Is FSU the first team in history to have received votes in the AP poll following a three or fewer win season, and a loss in week 1? Feels like the answer should be yes, but it seems difficult to find the answer. I'm going to blindly say yes, because I don't think anybody's ever had a 3-win season and then opened the season with a loss and still got votes. Did FSU get votes in this AP poll today?
Sounds like it.
I don't follow the AP poll, but I'm
Yeah, I
guessing
can't say that I looked at it, but it certainly sounds like it.
When's the last time you were like, I really want to go follow the AP poll?
Yeah.
Probably the last time FSU might be in it, you know?
Right.
So 5 years.
I mean, it's certainly. I think part of it's. I think a large part of it's McKenzie. I think a decent portion of it's the passing of Bobby, but it certainly seems as though there's a, national want for Florida State to not be horrible, or at least a appreciation for the fact that Florida State may not be horrible for the foreseeable future at a level nationally that I haven't heard or noticed in a long while. Or maybe Florida State's just so bad that I haven't much concerned myself with what a lot of national people thought or had to say. But it was interesting. You mentioned that in the instant, and obviously being in the press box, and me, wearing my vocal cords out, screaming in my head like an idiot. I wasn't able to see the national reaction to it, but it's been interesting to see the past day and a half or so.
All right, so Kyle says, hey guys, looking forward to the pod. Another loss in the opener, but one that gives a lot more optimism than the other prior 4. Gulp. Yeah, that's for sure. 2 questions. There were a number of plays where 2 wide receivers were in the same spot. Any thoughts as to why this kept happening? Not sure if it's just poor execution or otherwise. Well, 2 things. Number 1, it can be poor execution. The other thing is that depending on the kind of coverage look you get, sometimes what you're actually trying to do is run some pick stuff or some cross type stuff to where when the ball gets thrown, it looks like there's 2 guys in the same spot, but because they're actually in motion, it just, it looks like they're a little bit closer than they are. If they're both running, stop routes right next to each other, that's a problem because then one guy can pick off the same pass and kind of cover 2 dudes. It's week 1, man. There's a lot of sloppiness out there, and FSU's not immune to it. Hell, some teams look super good on one side of the ball and not so good on the other. Look at Georgia's defense. Georgia's offense looked like it hadn't practiced all year.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia's defense looks like they never let him off the practice field. So the other question is Travis seems to second guess just about every throw. He'll see a guy, but he waits to throw until he's been open for a second as opposed to letting it fly to the open spot in the secondary. The only exception was the deep ball. He saw it, he stepped up, delivered a dime. You think it's a confidence thing influenced by the picks or general area of weakness in his game that we have to try to live with? Combination of maybe?
Yeah, a little bit of both.
He definitely does not throw with good anticipation. I will say that. He
doesn't throw with anticipation. He's also only played 10 games. So, you need to remember that. There's some throws where I'd like to see him put a little bit of more mustard on it and he floats it. The throw to Ja'Kai was a beauty, but I'm pretty that's just a try to look Hamilton off to the right ever so quickly and then immediately come back to him. I mean, that's pretty much a run route option on that, in my opinion. So I will give him credit for I will give him credit for looking Hamilton off and for the throw, but that was not necessarily a pass that had a series of decisions made in it, in my opinion. So he's got to be more comfortable believing what he sees, and he's got a throw of anticipation. I completely agree with Kyle that there's too many times where he sees it and wants to, think about it before he lets it go. He's also an incredible runner, but I think far too frequently he just tries to turn a play into what I would call recess football. I mean, when I'm in 4th grade and we're playing in a parking lot and there's 6 guys aside and nobody knows anything what they're doing, but they're just running around trying to throw the ball. That works occasionally, but you've got to be comfortable operating in a pocket and playing a little bit more within the offense.
So let me ask you this. Do you think this offense has the pieces to have a rhythm passing game, an anticipation passing game? Like I'm not convinced, man, with these receivers, and like I don't, my thoughts on Cam McDonald. Like I don't know that the best offense with the pieces, all 11 pieces, not just the quarterback, isn't a run heavy mobile quarterback shot play offense. It's not going to be pretty in the passing game.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't know if they can protect it. And like obviously Milton, if he's able to play and be healthy and really get it, his quick release can help you there. But like I don't like these receivers. They don't impress me. I don't know that I don't know that the best plan here is let's pass protect with this offensive line and try to throw a bunch of on time passes to these guys. I'm not buying in on that. I could be wrong. I may very well be wrong. I didn't think Florida State was going to score as many points against Notre Dame as they did. Certainly can be wrong. But I don't think it's crazy. Like if you said, hey, ultimately we figured out the best offense for them to run is using Jordan's legs and throwing shot plays. Because Jordan's legs do screw with the defense. I don't think you're going to pop that big Corbin run and some of those runs if McKenzie's in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just don't. But I want to see it. I do want to see them try with McKenzie because I think you have to be tempted by the upside. I just don't know, man. Like some of these receivers, I was like, okay, we'll see. Not good players.
Final question of the evening comes from Trey. Trey says, assuming both are healthy, will the QB game, this is pretty similar, but will the QB game install determined be by the opponent as much as anything else? It would seem to reason that some opponents might read a defensive scheme where Milton might be a better fit, and some teams will run a scheme where JT might be the better option. Would you really want to expose Milton's potentially fragile health to Clemson's front seven?
No, I would not want to do that. Ultimately,
yeah, I mean, we've kind of talked about this, Trey. Certainly, and I'm not diminishing. Your question comes as last, and I'm not. Naturally, a lot of this stuff's already been covered. If we assume that the D line is really as good as we saw on Sunday and will stay that consistent, does the fact alone adjust win totals by one whole number? Forget every other potential positive factor we possibly could take away from Sunday. Having a very strong D-line is such a difference maker, especially against marginal teams in the ACC, who we all think can be coin flip games, such as Wake, Louisville, NC State, or BC.
I do think it is a legitimate improvement, but I'm not going to be willing to decrease my win totals by that much just yet, just based on the defensive line, until I get a little more information about the offensive line's health, and I want to see more out of McKenzie Milton. Like if you're telling me FSU has a legit pass game, yeah, I'm going to increase my win total, y'all. Just going to tell you right now, if they really can throw the football, if McKenzie Milton is some sort of wizard, and can make these receivers viable pass catching threats, then I will be increasing my win projection. But at this point, I'm just not willing to go that much up.
Yeah, Trey, I'm pretty close with where you are. I mean, if I see this a couple more times and we have consistency and a level of confidence that this is what the D line looks like, I mean, again, we've talked all about how Wake Forest is a big game, and I mentioned this in the win expectations or win probability. I'm thrilled that's not a noon game. 3:30 isn't that much of a difference, but you're not going to have 72,000 people. You're not going to have an environment that's ridiculous. You're going to have an environment that's similar to some high school football games. You're going to have to come and play hard against Wake Forest, and they don't have that ridiculous mesh that they used to, but it's still a little bit of a different offense. And if the defense of line, you see a similar performance, then yeah, I'll feel pretty confident about what you have in there and start to walk down the road of having a little bit more confidence as to what the base level of this team is. Because if you can control the line of scrimmage and if you can push the interior around some, then yeah, some of these coin flip games in the ACC, I feel a whole hell of a lot better about.
I think that's fair. I will note, Wake did not look great against Old Dominion. But again, like I said, what we don't know is week one. Is that like you could tell me that this is FSU's kind of base level, like their middle of the road level this year? I could buy that. You could tell me this is the best they'll look all year, and if injuries happen, I could certainly buy that. It's hard for me to imagine that this is the worst they're going to look all year, right? Like, so what I think is helpful or maybe instructive is think about how an opponent played from like one of your future opponents played, and then say, where does that fall within their range of outcomes on the season? Like, what is that their B game, their A game, their F game, their D game? Like, that's probably Louisville's like C- game last night, maybe D+. They came out, they looked rattled. They could just quit on the whole year. I doubt they're going to play that bad in every game.
Yeah.
Do you think FSU will play this well in every game?
Gonna have to see it.
Yeah.
Gonna have to see it.
Right. I agree. I think that's all we got for tonight. Rashay, got your question, and going to save that for the preview pod because we are at like an hour and 20 here. I think it's actually a better question than throwing it there in the hour and 20-minute mark. So we'll save that for next week.
Okay. Awesome, man. Yeah, anything else we want to touch on? I know that we had a chance to hit on almost everything organically there, based off the questions, but yeah, that's about it for me. I will say one thing real quickly, subject of moral victories, whether or not you want to believe those or not. I'll simply say that I would remove this from a category of moral victories because what you did on the recruiting trail was very real, and you're not stretching for anything there. I mean, that has the chance to have a pretty significant long-term impact on the trajectory of the program. So, win, loss, overtime, heartbreak, whatever, you put a really, really good foot forward on the recruiting trail, and it's going to pay significant dividends for you.
100%. All right, buddy. We'll see you very soon.
Awesome. All right, man. Thank you so much for the listens. We'll be back with the preview pod. We've got a fun little game show that we're going to play. We didn't want to waste on this one. So, no, that did not. A couple beers might have been in the system, bud, but it didn't get lost on me. Don't you worry. So, yeah, we'll do that. And I think we may try to do that one live. I know we've had some requests for a couple more live shows. So we'll tweet that out with the Jack State preview because Lord knows we need to liven it up a little bit for that one. So this has been great. Really appreciate it. If you can give us 5-star on iTunes or hit all the silly requests that everyone makes with every piece of content.
So when we go live, you get the notification.
The bell is tied to the live. Watch it.
Ding.
Subscribe. Send us money. All the great things. No, I'm kidding. It's been a nice little start to the season. Great weekend. Look forward to the next game. We'll be back with you later on this week.